We're live.
live through the magic of science and Dieter's mastery of technology. Welcome, everybody. We're Capt Ron here, back with Dieter Staudinger for another episode of Fearless Flight Live. Your place to go if you want to find some help for your flight anxiety. If you want to try to, you know how you nudge people when when you're doing self-help, you open the self-help book and you hold it in front of your partner, trying to get them interested in what you're trying to get them interested in. Well, that's another thing. I've had many people call me about their partners, or if you just like to talk about the airline industry. So let me open the slides. We'll make it a little more formal, make it look like we halfway know and care about what we're doing. And if Dieter will tell me your go, Ron. Okay.
Yep, it's good to go.
So welcome, everybody. Capt Ron here, along with Dieter Staudinger, for another episode of Fearless Flight Live, our weekly show. First thing we want to make known of is our Fearless Flight private Facebook Birds of a Feather group. And this is a place, matter of fact, you're going to see how much we access it and how vital it is to us, because tonight's topic came from there. And I'm going to give credit for that to a person who made a really interesting post there. So, and as a result of that, I went a little bit over the top tonight, and I created a custom visualization to kind of give you a firsthand experience if you haven't had one. If you don't own our Fearless Flight Harmonizer, or you've never gotten a custom visualization from me, you may not know what the heck I'm talking about every week when I mention those subjects. So if you are a member of Birds of a Feather, you will have access to that, because tomorrow we will download that. And Dieter will post it up there. So we'd like to, we're pushing 1,800 and we'd like to bust over 2,000 here in the next couple of months. So to repeat, tonight's topic has a custom guided visualization with it, and I'm going to post it live, or post it in the Birds of a Feather Facebook group tomorrow, so you can have access to it. Tonight, the topic that I chose was surviving long-haul flights. That's an issue for many of you out there, and one particular individual had made a post on there, and we're gonna talk about it. We have a brief Potomac crash update, and we're just going to highlight the fact that the LA classes are returning again. Right now, it's still a tentative date. I'm trying to connect with the owner of the studio. He's just been a little bit out of reach here this last week. I just need to connect with him and confirm the date and that we're go for that. And then I want to encourage any of you out there who might be interested in our next live monthly group coaching webinar for February, coming up on February 20th and 22nd. And of course, any of you that have questions, feel free to do that. I think, well, I don't think this tonight, it's about how do you approach long haul flights? People tell me that, I can do a short flight, but when I think about doing a long haul, it bugs me. What'd you do, Dieter, when you were heading over to Europe? Did you get bored?
Do I get bored? Personally, I actually look forward to the flights because I can load up on watching the latest movies.
Yeah, it's kind of thing. I don't know about you, but for me, I'm so busy around the house here doing this stuff, creating content, that it's a relief. Nobody can get to me when I'm on the airplane. It's kind of a place for respite. When I was flying actively, sometimes we would deadhead from point A to point B. And for me, as a lot of pilots didn't like it. I think that was issues of control for them. They had to be up front. They didn't like the idea of trusting somebody else. But for me, man, the longer the better, the more, and I got paid for it. So who can complain about getting paid for something to sit there and watch a movie, as Dieter said. So, and unfortunately that for much of my career, we didn't have all of the fancy streaming and stuff we do now. I would kill for that. I did great just listening to CDs and my old Walkman and all those devices. I remember when those are big. But anyway, Avery, I think her last name was Elizabeth.
I think so. Yes, Elizabeth.
Avery Elizabeth. I went over to. I got a notice when you all in the Birds of a Feather make post. So I usually go over there and check them out. And Avery put a wonderful post in there about her mastery of shorter flights, but how long flights were more challenging. So I thought tonight we'll just spend 10 minutes talking about that. So her post inspired me to come up with some strategies for mentally approaching. How do you approach a long haul flight? How do you counter that noise in your brain that says, "Oh, Ron, you're not going to like this. What are you going to do up there? You're going to feel miserable." Another concern is about feeling trapped. Of course, if you feel trapped in a short haul, you're definitely going to feel trapped in a long haul. What do you do with the anxiety buildup? All the anticipatory anxiety that builds up. Again, not unlike a short flight, but for some people, it becomes overwhelming when the flight is of any duration. And then the last thing is, frankly, just how do you sit still for a long time like that? Man, and you wouldn't even think about it. Some of you probably sat there during the Super Bowl for 4 hours, and this was a tougher one to sit through, no matter what kind of which team you were rooting for. But I do see this in a lot of people who have flight anxiety or anxiety disorders in general, is they just have trouble sitting there. And Avery, again, congratulations on the progress you've made. It's no small feat, the fact that you've worked your way up from 1 hour to 4 hour flights, and you've done it with dedication and increasing your resilience, which is really what this is all about. And your success so far is proof that you have the tools to manage your anxiety, and you're just looking for ways to stretch them to accommodate a longer flight. Okay, that's better than not being able to handle any flights. And long haul flights, as we said, they do present different challenges, but they're also structured in a way that can make them easier than you might expect. And so what's coming up is some strategies tailored to your concerns, including feeling trapped, fear of mounting anxiety mid-flight, the difficulty in sitting still, especially if you have ADHD. So celebrating your progress. Again, Avery, congratulations for your progress, and anyone out there. And if you haven't seen Avery's post, I recommend that. And I made a response to it. I felt compelled to do that because she took a big risk going out there. Going from a 1 hour flight to a 4 hour flight, as we said before, took some work on Avery's part. And the long haul flight, instead of being overwhelming, it can be simply the next step. And you got the skills, but how do you get to that next level? We just need to expand them, as it says on the site. Okay, reframing this whole thing of feeling trapped, because one of the fears of long haul flights is the idea of being stuck, more so than those of you who are just bothered by that, thinking about any flight. And reframing this. Using reframing to change this perspective helps. And so one of the things you can do is think of it as a structured period of time where you have control over your activities, not unlike what Dieter and I were talking about. We're planning ahead, and I don't mean to minimize your anxiety versus ours, but we know we have similar motivations, and we both, you and Dieter and I and you all out there, have the same opportunity. You can sit down ahead of time and you can think, what am I going to do with that time? No less than you would at anything else. And so one of the things you can do is break the flight into smaller chunks to make it more manageable. And on the slide, you see this. And we had a guest, don't fail me, Allie Anderson, from a couple of years ago now. And Allie was one of the first people that shared with me how she did this. And it was much like this. She blocked the flight out, much like we do with a flight plan, even though ours are done by the computer now. And she would block it down in 20-minute segments. And so she would say, from this point until 20 minutes, I'm going to do this. The next 20 minutes, I'm going to do that. And you can always throw it out the window if you're doing fine. You don't need to do it. But this is a way. And what else does it do? It occupies your mind when you're having all those bouts of anticipatory anxiety. Okay. So think of it as nothing more than a long ride or a long car trip. And think about the fact, number one, if it weren't for having the courage to get in an airplane, you would be in one of Dad's road trips. And we all know how tired we get of Dad saying, let's just drive this weekend. Okay. So,
and I think, let me just jump
go ahead.
here, Ron, because I think that's part of the challenge. When you go into the flight, let's say it's flying from the East Coast to to somewhere in mainland Europe there, anywhere from 6 to 8 hours. If you go in there or thinking, I don't know what to do with myself for all this time, that means you're not prepared. and what we're advocating is that you're actually long before you get on that flight, kind of like create your own flight plan of what you are going to do and what you're going to do at different times during the flight, depending on your own emotional, mental, physical kind of well-being, which is also gonna, often vary a little bit depending if there's turbulence or let's say the meal is not coming at the right time or things like that, right? So going in with a plan already sets you apart from someone who is just fretting about it and not actually creating a focused kind of like framework for that flight.
And what Dieter said is, people who plan to fail to plan are planning to fail, because that's exactly what happens. So the fear of reaching hour 4 and realizing that there's still 6 more hours can trigger panic. So instead of fearing this, proactively prepare for it in much the way that Dieter described there. So breathing exercises, mantras, activity changes to keep your anxiety from spiraling. And this image here, it symbolizes the fact that you can, this is what I do in an MRI. You just close your eyes and you picture yourself being somewhere else. I know it can be challenging if you're in that dreaded middle seat. I know it can be challenging if you don't have much knee room up there, but believe me, for 2 minutes, you can close your eyes and you can put yourself anywhere you want to in the universe. Okay. So the important thing is to make a plan and have it and think about it in advance. Again, it ties up your resources. Instead of being available solely to get tricked out by anticipatory anxiety, and it has a practical advantage of having a plan that you can actually implement once you get on the airplane. So I joke with people, if you can't think of a place to practice, go sit in your closet without your cell phone for an hour or for 5 minutes. You develop the ability to get through it. You don't have to go for an hour. You don't have to go for 5 minutes. You can just go in there, close the door, and sit there for 2 minutes. Just do little experiments like that. Okay. I think Avery mentioned this. I believe that's why I put it in here. For some people with ADHD, sitting still is a challenge. So what do? You plan for movement. And I know that some people are so spooked, they don't want to get up out of their seat. But if you're on a long haul, chances are you're going to be on a wide body airplane. And by that, I mean an airplane that has 2 aisles. They have 3 separate banks of seats. And the advantage of that is you can make a little circuit there, particularly when the flight attendants are not serving. The other thing is you can get to the bathrooms when the flight attendants are serving and get to and from your seats, where it's difficult sometimes if you're in a single aisle airplane. Uh, the airlines, believe it or not, they do encourage passengers to get up and walk every few hours. Meet the flight attendants, strike up a conversation with them, tell them that what you're doing, and just engage them in God knows whatever conversation to just learn something about them on the flight, just like you're sitting in a town square or something like that. And I know I don't have fidget tools per se, but there's some that intrigue me, and I get that close to buying them off of Amazon. But there's some really fun ones out. We should have a thing to have everybody send us either a picture or a small video what their fidget tools are, Dieter. Yeah. Because I think that'd be good. Okay. So if you have access right now to a fidget tool, if you can't do anything more than give us the name or the Amazon link to it, put that in the notes, okay, or leave a post on that. So those things are well used as well. And so here's in the sketch here, you can see walking down the aisle, stretching down the aisle, and using a fidget tool. I recommend to people. And let's say you're not comfortable right away getting up out of your seat, or you're by the window seat. Maybe you just push yourself up on the arms for a second and just kind of support yourself. Just put yourself in some different position. And when you're in a long haul, there's some physiological advantages to that, in that you may minimize the possibility of clotting in your lower legs. What's that name for that? There's a physiological name for that.
Thrombosis?
Not thrombosis, I don't think. Well, I don't. I associate more the heart, but there is for people who sit for extended periods of time, and they identify this with one of the threats is, if you do this on an airplane, is if you're subject to that, you can get clotting in your lower extremities. So that's why it's a benefit to you physiologically to get up, do some seat yoga, flexing your lower legs and moving around a bit. Okay, so a practical flight prep. Okay. Take the right items in your carry-on. If in doing that can make a huge difference. This has a water bottle. Now you could carry that water bottle onto the airplane if you purchased it inside of security, the TSA. The thing that I just learned in the last 6 months, however, there was another twist to this. If you freeze the water in your water bottle, you can go through security with that. Now, the problem is, by the time you get to security, it may have melted, and I don't know to what degree they'll let you do that. But you can take it fully frozen in there.
I know. I always love these travel hack YouTube influencers that come up with what you can bring, like in terms of food items that used to be liquid and things like that. There's an entire little cottage industry out there. There, Avery. Actually, Avery, hey, great to have you join us, Avery. And Avery says, I always bring frozen water. So that's
cool.
A perfect example right there.
Yep. Yeah. And I wish we used to have a call-in number. If you want to come on, just use my cell phone number, Avery. But I'd love. I'm sorry. What we need to do is we need to get you on as our guest coming up on the show there. So anyway, but thanks, Avery, for making that post and making the Birds of a Feather such a dynamic place for people to be, because without you all out there, it means nothing. It means nothing unless people exercise and take a chance. So I'm really big, like Dieter. I take electronic stuff, and I swear I could supply the airplane electronically with all my backup batteries that I take with me. It's guaranteed to get me to slow down through security typically.
But even those are often great conversation starters with people, because I too have like a power bank or an extra cable, and very often, even on these long haul flights, you have USB or you have like a plug-in, and they don't work. It's like one of those things. So I've often had opportunities to be of service and engage and have great conversations that ensue from lending somebody my power bank, my second one.
And unlike the emergency exit lights, if the personal customer care things like the USB outlets and stuff don't work, you're going anyway. Trust me, they're not pulling the airplane out of service for that. So
Nope.
anyway, yeah. So comfort, entertainment, relaxation aids help you feel more in control. And isn't that what it's about? It's about feeling in control versus not feeling in control. So if you have things that are familiar with you, it can help that. And also, here's a thought that we don't talk about often. Having a post-flight plan ensures that you don't feel overwhelmed when you land. So what are you going to do when you get there? You know, depending on whether it's a business trip, whether you're visiting family or friends, or just a little thought about that. And the other thing I encourage, as we used to do in aviation, is when we get done, spend at least a couple of minutes thinking about and celebrating what went right for you, and making a note of it. I highly recommend you journal. Most people admit that once they're in the descent, the final descent towards landing, they feel greatly relieved, no matter how much anxiety they had prior to that time. So that would be a great time to make some journal entries on what it was like today. When did you have trouble? What happened during the flight? And so now you got things that you could work on down the road, because it's essential. One of the things I'm going to talk about in this month's monthly live coaching webinar is we're going to talk about what if you do a coaching session with me, what you can do, what you're going to get out of the coaching session. Even if it's a 15-minute one, it's going to give you a whole bunch of things that came up, and a whole bunch of things that you can work on, some recommendations. And that's better than waiting, just sitting there like a bump on a log until the night before your next flight. And not that I don't want you to text me or contact me, but when you say, Capt Ron, I got to fly tomorrow, what am I going to do? Well, do some of the things that we suggest and that you'll find in the Birds of a Feather.
Ron, we were talking about the Birds of a Feather. Another really, really good way, one, if you can connect with another member, we have over 1,700, so that shouldn't be too hard. It's a great way, even on your phone, like Ron said, take some time to journal. But if you do have, some people ask, please track me, something like that.
Yeah.
But then you can take it a step further and say, hey, can you be my comfort and accountability partner? And that's the person that you could message. I know while you're in the, up flying, not every airline gives free Wi-Fi yet, but at the very least you can use the chat feature, and you can record just like you would,
Yep.
and then as soon as you're landing, you can actually, all these messages will come through. They will get a good snapshot of what your flight was like, and you can kind of debrief. And that is so, like Ron said, that is really, really critical, because there was a lot of emotion involved, and you want to really route that inside of your wiring in a way to build on your confidence, to build on celebrating your success. And real quick, so Joan said, so we can take a fork, just not a knife.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
Exactly.
And as Dieter said, I encourage people to text me and take advantage of the free Wi-Fi texting, usually on iMessage or WhatsApp. So you have to have one of those two apps on board, and you have to have the airlines app on to get on the Wi-Fi. But it's typically free, and I love it because any of you who have ever texted me, I've got your text. I keep them. And occasionally I'll put them together, just like I did with Avery's post on in the Birds of a Feather, and I'll look and see, because it's great. It's great real-time feedback, and sometimes we engage in a little coaching banter when I get that. So okay, so final thoughts about this. It's a process, and we've said over and over, overcoming your flight anxiety is a process. You don't have to be perfect, and you don't have to be completely at ease the entire flight. Let me say that again. You don't have to feel completely at ease the entire flight. For some of you, that's a tough thing in life. We do want to believe, but especially in this day and age, with all the trigger warnings that have sometimes gotten out of control, we want to believe that we can be 100 100% emotionally comfortable at all times. No, that's not how life works. And I know with my own kids, the hardest lesson for me was not wanting to take all their pain away, because and they helped me with that as they got old and individuated, say, Dad, lighten up a little. But that's how we got to be where we are. And so we need to look at life. Buddhism, the Buddha said, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. So we're going to have pain in our life, but we don't have to suffer. Okay. And the goal is to be prepared with strategies to manage your discomfort when it arises. Every flight makes the next one easier if you have tools that you can practice. And you don't have to get on your next flight with 27 tools. You just need one. Just need one. And you'll find you'll be able to make adjustments from that. And so, and you all are capable of handling this. One of our favorites greetings is, you got this, and you really do. Okay. I wanted to talk, actually, let me stop the share here. What I want to do is actually what I want to change, see if I can bring this up.
And yes, and Avery just said that's a great reminder, becoming comfortable with our discomfort. I mean, that is not just a flight anxiety mantra. I think that's a mantra for life, because in the end, as much as we can prepare, in some ways you can also prepare for the things that you cannot prepare for by knowing that if things do get out of hand, you can you can connect with a flight attendant, and it makes it so much easier, by the way, if you use our guidance and is pre-board right early, ahead of everybody else. That means you have to identify yourself, and what that does for you is you can introduce yourself to the flight attendants, maybe even have a quick connection with the captain, make this person real for you in your mind, remind yourself they also came on this flight. They want to go home to their wife and kids or whatever they want to go home to. So when things get really tough, there are human beings that are there for you, that you can also draw on for support. And it's so much easier to connect with somebody if you have already introduced yourself and said, hey, I'm really nervous about this flight. And, and because my experience is, when I connect with the flight attendants, not necessarily because I'm afraid to fly, but just because that's the kind of person I am, it's reciprocal. Like they, when they come through the aisle and, there's eye contact and a smile, it just puts you at ease, and it makes that connection much more meaningful and tangible. Ron, you're looking around like you are.
I know. Yeah, I apologize for
Yeah.
Stop my screen because everybody, what is wrong with him? We wanted to do a couple more things. One, we wanted to talk about, give you the latest update on the Potomac crash there. But the other one is, I wanted to talk about something that I was just browsing through things. I get Google alerts for fear of flying issues all the time, and I wanted to share this one with you. Okay, so I think you're looking at my page there, correct, Dieter? Mm-hmm. Okay, yep. So here's an incident that happened. I'm going to talk about two of them. One, this man was charged with after threatening the pilot, flight attendants, passengers before banging on the cockpit door. Whatever was going on with this guy, it's still rare, but it happens. And it seems like more and more, if it isn't happening more like turbulence, it seems like it is, because we have so many more people flying now. It's much more likely to be captured on some sort of portable device. and make it into the news media. And that's what happened to this one. So I don't remember what airline it was, but they were going from Florida to New Jersey. The guy was going home, and I don't know whether alcohol was a factor, but it definitely pissed him off when they told him that he wasn't going to get any liquor because they closed the bar, and he became unruly, and they ended up having him when they got to the destination, they had him arrested. So that's on the one end, and we have nothing but compassion for the flight crew that has to deal with that, and the people on the airplane around there. Everybody gets tense when those things happen. Well, here's another one and I wanted to show the contrast, and it's just as much of a problem in our culture today as anything else. This is a veteran. She was a lady. She's a 22-year Marine veteran. She is out of the service, but she was very connected to a couple of to her peers, and I think she was in a group. Anyway, she was wearing a T-shirt that said "End Veteran Suicide." Now, I'm a veteran, and I remember when I was getting my master's, I did my specialty for personal reasons and because I had a lot of friends who had been in combat and had PTSD, and veteran suicides is a real issue out there in our culture right now. Anyway, so she had this on, and I didn't see a picture of her or the T-shirt or anything like that, but I just imagine her wearing that, and one of the flight attendants took issue with that, and they actually put up a wall. They said, "You're not going unless you change your shirt." And of course, she was humiliated with it. She didn't know what to say and all that. And I just thought how sad it was. I wished I had been the captain on that airplane and the flight attendant had come up and presented me with that problem. I had some like that. If you haven't ever heard me say this before, early in my career, I had a flight where I was a non-revenue passenger. That means just traveling on my own with my family as one of the benefits that we received, going from point A to point B. And I saw this captain from Delta Airlines. This was 1981 when I first witnessed this. And we're getting ready. It's a busy Friday night out of DFW Airport. We're headed to Shreveport, short leg. And it's a Friday night, so the flight's pretty full. We were barely able to get on. And this big old 6'4", 6'5", good old boy from Georgia comes strolling down the aisle like he was in the town square, just a stroking and a joking with people, very casual. And I remember I was sitting all the way in the back, and I remember looking at the people around me, how they reacted. First of all, they were amazed that the captain was not only walking back there, but he was doing it in such a casual manner. And he was engaged with people, asking them how they were doing and all that. And I committed to myself, or I promised myself that I would do that when I got to be captain. Well, as luck would have it, 9 years later, I got to be a captain. And then I got, I didn't want to do it as a first officer because I didn't want the captain thinking that I was uppity and trying to usurp his authority or anything like that. So I put that on hold. I became a captain, and then I got caught up in my own stuff, and I said, that's kind of corny. People will think you're reaching or something like that. So I didn't do it. 9/11 came. I went back. My first flight after 4 days of no one flying in the United States, I had 4 people on board my airplane. So from that point on, I said, if you're going to practice this or take a chance, this would be it, because you're only going to, 4 people are all it's going to know that you fell on your face. And from that day on until I retired, I did it for every flight. I'd wait till about 5 minutes before we closed the door to push. It was easy to gauge that under normal circumstances. And I would go back there. And by that time, I'd been working with people like you for 15 years. And actually almost 20 years, 15 years. Yeah. And I knew how really anxious a lot of people were back there, and maybe not showing it. And the flight attendants, when I came up, she was like, had a dry sense of humor, and she said, "What the hell was that?" And I thought, oh man, she's going to take issue with that. And I said, no. And she said, "That was awesome." She said, "The people there's a whole different tone back there." So I was thinking about that. When I read things like this, it makes me sad to think that there was an incident where both people, I'm sure, were well-meaning. I'm confident that the vet was. And I just thought, if you could just tone that down and talk to him and say, what were you thinking? What were you thinking? But that's maybe the optimist in me. But nonetheless, I just thought it was sad. So here we are talking about experiences on flights, and she probably wasn't a fearful flyer, but she probably wasn't really all that enamored towards the airline. Although it does say at the end it was Delta Airlines, and they said that they worked it out amicably. So I don't know. She probably got some free tickets somewhere. I'm seeing. So yeah, if you have any comments about that, if you ever see anything like that, make a note of it. We'd like to talk about that. Okay, then, and the next thing.
Right, we have our we have our monthly group coaching webinar coming up February 20th.
And is that visible, Dieter?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, cool. Okay, yeah, and here's what's going to happen. Are you tired of feeling anxious every time you board a plane? You know, hopefully that's why you're here. And the number one issue we all know is losing control or feeling like you're losing control. And we're going to do a deep dive into the whole thing about control. So some of the things we're going to talk about, the psychological and biological roots of the fear of losing control. Where does it come from? And what can you do about it? How to reframe negative thoughts and regain confidence in flight. This is something I learned years ago in my own personal growth about how to take a negative thought and reframe it. And that forms the basis of much of the most successful things I'm doing with people coaching now, and that is to help them learn how to reframe. And we want to give you some techniques to balance your emotional side, your elephant, if you will. If you don't know, come and we'll talk about the elephant and the rider as a model for the brain and how it functions. And we want to give you some tools for the logical side, how to take control over those two and listen to one instead of the other sometimes. We'll have some practical exercises and some activities to give you a chance to use distance self-talk, guided visualization, and controlled breathing. We do have 2 visualizations that we do every webinar. And overall, the main thing is we're gonna help you continue to learn how to build resilience over time and how to celebrate small victories, which Avery gave me an opportunity to talk about tonight on this class. So we will have engaging breakout room activities. People say those are one of the best things about this, where you don't have to listen to me or to Dieter all the time. You get to talk to people who are there in the webinar with you and see where you stand with them and what it's like for other people. Maybe get some tips and techniques from other people. Like I said, we'll have the guided visualizations, and we have a Q&A is a big part of the session. Like this, it's ongoing. We want your questions because you are why we're there. And when Dieter suggested that we branch out and do this, it's been one of the best things that we've ever done. I think it's the best thing. It's the best thing for your buck.
I think so too.
Yeah, it really is. And if you join as an ongoing member, there's 2 levels you can join at. You get access to a lot of our other resources, and that you would otherwise have to purchase separately. So don't miss this opportunity. And it'll be Thursday night next week. Let's see. I think this is I lose track of time.
I think
yeah, it is next week.
Yep,
it is next week.
Yep.
Yep, at 6:30 Pacific, 9:30 Eastern, and then we have an encore version that I do. Same webinar, man. It's live. It's not recorded, and I'll do that on the following Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. For those of you who are just don't want to stay up until the wee hours of the morning, if you live on the East Coast, sir. Okay, so please join us with that. And the last, let me stop share. Okay. And 2 final things. One, we wanted to, I said 2, now I think there may be only 1. We wanted to talk about just a quick update about the crash in the Potomac last week, 2 weeks ago now. And Dieter reminded me that there's a system that used to be only on rare airplanes, and Europe was the first to get this, but it's called ADS-B. And that's an acronym. I could impress you by reading what it's called. But basically what it is, it's a receiver, a piece of equipment on the airplane that uses global positioning satellites, and it records everything. It tells it's the flight data recorder when you don't have a flight data recorder. You get so much information about what the airplane was doing at any one time. And we already said that when one of the tragedies of that accident where the Army helicopter, the Black Hawk helicopter, ran into the American Airlines regional jet, was that they were below 1,000 feet, and the TCAS, traffic collision avoidance system, was disabled. The audible part is disabled. So now you can only see the conflicts coming up if you're looking at the scope, and you're less likely to do that when you're down below 1,000 feet. But sadly, that was in there, was disabled. So then they didn't get the most robust warning. The audible one says pull up or descend, whatever. The tower did. That's what prompted him to give the alert at the last alert, but by which it was too late to make a difference. But they did get the audibles alert up there, and we'll continue to learn about things about this. But that again, that's another one of those number of links in the chain, any one of which, had it been broken, the accident would not have occurred. So we wanted to talk.
Just in case it wasn't clear, that ADS-B device, like all the commercial planes have to have those now anyways, right, Ron? The helicopter had one of those as well, but as far as preliminary investigation seems to point that it might have been turned off. So that's what, obviously we're going to have to wait for the final report, but that would be really, really tragic. And one of the things that will definitely come out of is how civilian aircraft and military aircraft are going to be, communicating going forward, because clearly there's got to be some, with the skies getting busier and busier, there's definitely a need to overhaul, those things that haven't been maybe updated as frequently, right? Because it was so safe, and there was not,
and it wouldn't have made a difference in the prevention of the accident per se, but it would have been much more helpful to analyze the accident in the aftermath. So, and there was one other thing I wanted to remember, and that is we're going to have a special guest next Tuesday night. It's our good friend Arnold Barnett. If you look at the news, not unlike me, when we have tragedies out there, I get a lot of media interest. A lot of you contact me, and if you look in just about any article that quotes the odds of dying in an airplane crash, it's going to have at the foundation some of the research done by Arnold Barnett. And I came across his name about 6 years after 9/11, and thought that who am I to contact this famous guy? And finally I got over that back in the late 17, 18, 19. And Arnold actually came and presented to one of our classes live that we had over in the Burbank area, which we're going to resume here. But anyway, Arnold has agreed to come on the show next week, and we'll let him talk to you about what it really means in terms of how safe aviation is getting better or getting worse, or should we be concerned about that? So, okay. Anything else, Dieter?
No, I think we covered everything. I don't think there's any more questions. And I hope that our show tonight was really helping you guys. We're always open for topics to get into. This one was a good one, because a lot of you, a short flight seems manageable, but then multiplying that, it seems the anxiety multiplies as well, and not even linearly, but logarithmically. So,
and if you can imagine, this is about control, and we're gonna do a deeper dive on that on Thursday,
February 20th. Yeah.
February 20th. So please come and join us. And thanks for tuning in. We do enjoy it. And if you've got any issues, like Avery did, even though she didn't directly do it, we will find you and we will bring those issues out. So if you can't contact me directly or Dieter directly, then please feel free to put them in the birds of a feather there, or get them to us somehow, because you're the reason that we're here. Okay. So have a great week, everybody. Come back next week, especially to listen to Arnold Barnett give his expertise, share his expertise with us. And that'll end the latest edition of Fearless Flight, Birds of Feather, Fearless Flight Live. And I hope you have a great week, everybody.
Well, that was the plug, Ron. That was the plug, because tomorrow, for those of you who are watching it later, February 12th, we're going to post that meditation that Ron was talking about in the beginning of the show. So definitely come back, and we'll see you next week.